I was the only black woman on the floor, ignored in meetings as my manager said, "You sound angry." I watched my ideas get stolen and my voice dismissed. I gathered every proof and leaked a report called Silenced in Plain Sight. I lost my fear that day when the client asked for me, and my boss tried to. I'm standing in the conference room at the Harbor Ridge Consulting headquarters in Raleigh, North Carolina, and the silence hits me like ice. I've just asked the meeting facilitator a question about the client rollout schedule. The room looks at me, some eyes flicker. The slide presentation pauses for a beat, and then someone else restates my exact point, word for word, and gets praised for it by the director. That's the moment. I feel a rage rising, and I catch it, because this has been happening for months. I'm the only black woman on the operations floor of this consulting firm. Every time I speak in meetings, I'm talked over. My manager once pulled me aside and said, "Don't get so defensive, you sound angry," as though anger is a flaw. I kept quiet. I took notes. I tracked every comment, every mistake, every time my ideas were credited to someone else. In the background, I joined the firm believing I could make a real difference. I believed my expertise in logistical strategy and process improvement, plus my lived experience, could help them expand into underserved markets. I pitched that exact idea at orientation: new markets initiative, community partnerships, targeted outreach. I heard some nods. I waited for implementation. But what actually happened? After I left the room, someone else reused my proposal idea and nothing happened. I told myself to stay professional. I kept my head down, I showed up early, I volunteered to take notes, I followed up on action items. Every time someone skipped a task, I did it. When a senior lead asked for backup on a presentation, I helped. On paper, I was the model employee. Off record, I was exhausted, invisible, and frustrated. Then I realized. They didn't just ignore me, they silenced me. In meetings, I'd raise concerns. Does the pilot exclude rural areas? And the facilitator would glance off, look at someone else, shut me down with, "Can you submit that later?" By then another person would be doing my work, my idea, my point, and getting the praise. I kept a file. It started as a simple notes document. Date, meeting name, people present, what I said, how someone responded, what got credited, what change happened or didn't. Week after week, I added to it. By month 2, it looked like a ledger of erasure. Then I waited for the right moment. And that moment comes when the firm lands its biggest client yet, Greenfield Pharma, a global pharmaceutical company looking for expansion in eastern North Carolina and parts of Virginia. Harbor Ridge sets up a high-stakes contract, 6 figures, quarterly deliverables, board-level involvement. I'm put on the team as logistics coordinator. Great. But my suggestions for inclusive stakeholder outreach mingle with voices of people who took credit for similar ideas. The third client meeting is in downtown Raleigh in a shiny glass-walled boardroom. I pipe up. "Have we built an XXX contingency for rural access?" A lead turns, uses his phone. Another interrupts. A senior exec says, "Good question, but let's stay on time." Then the facilitator says, "Thanks, we'll circle back." We never circle. I track it in my file. Weeks later, I overlay that question with internal memos from our team, showing my name, my suggestion, and then the later version of the plan credited to someone else during the client press update. I realize the pattern isn't subtle. It's systematic, so I create the report. I call it Silenced in Plain Sight. It's a full-length document, 35 pages. It opens with a statement of purpose. I am the only black woman on the operations floor. Every idea I raise, every concern I voice goes into the file. Then I chart meeting after meeting, date, time, what I raised, how it was handled, who took credit, what the outcome was. I overlay demographic data. What percentage of presenters at meetings are male? What percentage of the credited voices are white men? And I cite it all. I link it to our client-facing project, showing how excluding perspectives threatens equity and market reach, especially in underserved rural and minority communities. On a late Tuesday night, I send the report, anonymized for the most part, but clearly enough tied to Harbor Ridge's work for Greenfield Pharma, directly to the Greenfield team. I attach a note. "Your project team may not fully reflect the communities you aim to serve. Please review this before our board update." The next day, the client replies. They demand a meeting with me, specifically. They want to hear about the insights in the report. I feel a surge of vindication and fear. I go into work the next morning. The team knows. The whispers start. My manager corners me in the hallway. You don't want to go that route. It reflects badly. I say nothing. I walk to my workstation, the hum of computers and fluorescent lights louder than ever. Then the boardroom call. Present in the room, the Greenfield Pharma execs, the Harbor Ridge partner, the project lead, my manager, but crucially me. I sit at the table, heart pounding as they ask, "Could you walk us through how you compiled this? What you're seeing?" I clear my throat, I start into the evidence. I point to charts, I show slides. I show how the community outreach plan ignores half the rural counties. I show meeting transcripts where my point was sidestepped. I share direct comparisons. My email on June 15 at 9:04 am versus the new draft credited to someone else at 4:15 p.m. the same day. The Harbor Ridge partner scrambles behind me, trying to recover control. My manager's face is tight, but the Greenfield team leans in. They ask sharp questions about demographic reach. They ask how the advisory board for the rollout looks in terms of diversity. My manager interrupts once, but the client says, "We'll let her finish." At that moment, I feel something shift. The floor is no longer mine just to navigate, it's mine to claim. Call to action. If you've ever been ignored, sidelined, or erased at work, hit like and subscribe. I want to hear your story too. Drop in the comments, which meeting moment made you feel invisible? I reply, the day after the Greenfield meeting, everything changes, but not in the way I expected. I walk into work thinking maybe someone will congratulate me. Maybe, finally, I'll get acknowledged. But the air is thick. My ID badge doesn't scan at the front gate. The security guard looks confused, calls someone upstairs. I wait for 10 minutes before they manually buzz me in. When I step onto the operations floor, people go quiet. One of the junior analysts who used to laugh with me by the coffee machine won't even make eye contact. I get to my desk. My email doesn't load. I reboot my machine. Still nothing. 5 minutes later, HR pings me, "Come to conference room D now." I walk in and it's like a setup. My manager's there. One of the senior VPs. An HR rep I've never seen before, clipboard in hand. "Due to a breach in internal communications protocol," they begin, "we're placing you on administrative leave while we investigate a possible violation of client confidentiality." I stare at them. "You're investigating me?" I ask. The HR rep keeps a neutral face. "We've had concerns raised about your conduct. You shared an internal document externally without permission." "I shared data that reflects your actual conduct," I reply. "And I didn't break any NDA. There's no confidential client data, just meeting logs and observed behavior." "Mine," my manager chimes in. "You blindsided us. We could have worked this out internally." I laugh once. "You mean the way you worked out my ideas by giving them to someone else? Or the way you worked out me being interrupted every time I spoke?" The HR rep interrupts. "You'll be escorted out today. We'll notify you after the investigation." That's how I end up outside, in the parking garage, holding a cardboard box with nothing but a framed photo of my nephew and a dried-out desk plant. I sit in my car for 20 minutes, staring at the building like it's a stranger. What they didn't expect was that Greenfield Pharma would not let it go. 2 days after I'm suspended, they reach out again. This time, directly. The same exec who led the board meeting sends me a personal message. "We're revisiting vendor partnerships in light of recent events. Would you be open to an independent consulting role for a special equity initiative?" I reread the email 10 times. They're not just offering to hear me out, they want to hire me, as a consultant, to advise them. Independently, I reply yes, we set up a meeting, and in that moment I start planning something bigger. A week later, as Harbor Ridge continues its investigation, Greenfield releases a quiet press update. New equity review partner announced. The firm they list isn't Harbor Ridge, it's a new small consultancy. Mine. I used the last of my savings to register the LLC, get the website up, and draft my proposal. I call the company Plainsight Equity. When Harbor Ridge sees the announcement, panic sets in. One of their junior PMs leaks an internal message. Upper management is scrambling. The Greenfield contract represents over 20% of Harbor Ridge's Q4 revenue. Losing them isn't just embarrassing, it's financially dangerous. I'm watching it unfold from my living room couch, phone lighting up with messages. Some coworkers who stayed silent for months now suddenly want to check in. My former manager emails me a vague message. Hope you're doing well. If you're open to it, I'd love to connect about potential reconciliation. Reconciliation. You tried to bury me. What they don't know yet is that I'm not just consulting with Greenfield. I'm building something wider. After the press release, I get calls from 3 more companies, 2 nonprofits and a regional university, who saw the silenced in plain sight report and want similar audits done. I say yes to all of them. One of the nonprofits even offers me office space to work out of. I take it. I move my boxes in myself, put the dried-out plant in the corner, and breathe. For the first time in a long time, I feel like my voice actually matters. But then, Harbor Ridge fights back. They send me a legal threat, a cease and desist letter claiming I breached confidentiality, damaged their reputation, and misrepresented internal practices. They threaten to sue if I don't retract the report and remove my name from the project. I forward the letter to Greenfield's legal team. A day later, their counsel replies directly to Harbor Ridge, CCing me. The subject line: retaliation and whistleblower protection. The message is one sentence: any further contact with our consultant will be viewed as harassment and escalated accordingly. Harbor Ridge goes silent, but the silence doesn't mean surrender. 2 weeks later, I hear from a former coworker, Erin, one of the junior analysts. She says, "They're watching your LinkedIn. They're talking about discrediting you." How? They're claiming you made up the whole report. That you had a personal grudge, that you were disruptive, difficult to work with. I pause. Are they saying that on record? No, she says, but they're planting it in conversations. They want people to think you were always the problem. That's when I know I'm not done. They tried to erase me in meetings. Now they want to rewrite the whole story. I don't sleep that night. I lie awake, staring at the ceiling fan, listening to its slow, squeaky spin. I think about every email I ever sent from my Harbor Ridge address, every private note I jotted down, every conversation where someone leaned in and said, "Keep this between us." I didn't expect them to go quiet. I expected them to fight dirty. And now they're planting stories meant to make me look like I was never a team player, that I was always difficult, that I had an attitude. All the old, tired labels they use to shrink women like me down to nothing. So I decide to go loud. The next morning, I log into LinkedIn and publish a public post. I title it, "What Happens When You Speak Up? My Story of Silence, Strategy, and What Came After." I keep it clean, professional, but I don't hold back. I lay out the facts. How I was the only Black woman on the operations floor, how my ideas were dismissed or taken by others, how I created a report with documented meeting data and shared it with a client committed to equity. I mention my suspension, the legal threats, and the attempt to smear my name behind closed doors. I don't name Harbor Ridge, but I don't have to. I end the post with, "If I sound angry, it's because you've confused anger with clarity." What you're hearing is someone who finally refused to stay quiet. I hit post. The reaction is immediate. By lunchtime, the post has over 20,000 views. By the end of the day, 65,000. My inbox floods with messages. Former coworkers from past jobs, people I've never met, HR professionals, community leaders, even a few journalists. A reporter from a regional business journal asks if I'd go on record. I say yes. 2 days later, the story drops. Whistleblower or workplace rebel, how one woman's report sparked a corporate shakeup. They don't mention Harbor Ridge by name, but the details are all there. Consulting firm, Raleigh-based, big pharma client, internal review chaos. Anybody who knows the industry can connect the dots. That same day, someone leaks a second document to me, Harbor Ridge's internal Slack messages. A thread titled Project Damage Control. In it, managers are arguing about how to respond. Someone even floats the idea of offering me a settlement with NDA. They still don't get it. I'm not going away. By week's end, Greenfield Pharma makes another public move. They launch a new campaign, Equity and Access, expanding care with every voice. Guess who they credit as strategic advisor? Me. Plainsight Equity is officially listed on their site. That's when it clicks. They were never just afraid of the truth. They were afraid of losing control of the story. One night, a text pops up on my phone. It's from Erin, the junior analyst who warned me before. She writes, "Check your email, you didn't get this from me." Attached is a forwarded message. Internal Harbor Ridge memo. Confidential. Subject line, restructure recommendation, staff reduction plan Q4. The names listed. Every person who backed my ideas even once, even in small ways, it's retaliation. Quiet, surgical, they're clearing the floor. And that's when I know I need to do more than just protect myself. I need to expose everything. I start building a second report. This one is broader, not just about me. It includes anonymous interviews from 6 former employees. 3 still working there, 3 who left. All Black, Latinx, or Asian professionals. Every single one tells a version of the same story. Silenced in meetings, talked over, discredited, then pushed out. I anonymize their data. I create pseudonyms. I track dates, patterns, org charts. I cite articles, industry standards, DEI benchmarks. I title the report, The Silence Report, Patterns of Discredit and Erasure in Corporate Consulting. And this time, I don't send it to just one client. I send it to every client listed on Harbor Ridge's site. I use a secure email service. Each message includes a personalized note. If your organization values equity, you should know what's happening behind the scenes with your partners. Then I sit back, phone in hand, waiting. Within 3 days, 2 clients quietly end their contracts with Harbor Ridge. A week later, the biggest one, the Department of Public Health from a neighboring state, launches an internal audit of their consultants and posts a new RFP for DEI-aligned vendors. I apply and I'm shortlisted. Harbor Ridge finally goes public, sort of. They publish a blog post titled Commitment to Inclusion, reflecting, learning, and growing together. It's generic. No names, no accountability. They still think they can ride the storm. But the storm isn't coming. It's already here. 3 weeks later, I get an email that stops me cold. It's from a law firm representing a class action group. The subject, Inquiry Regarding Workplace Discrimination Investigation. They're putting together a case against Harbor Ridge Consulting, and they want to know if I'm willing to testify. Not just as a whistleblower, but as a key witness with documented proof of discrimination, retaliation, and systemic silencing. I reply the same day, yes. That same week, I hear from Maya, a former HR assistant at Harbor Ridge. She messages me late at night from a burner email account. She doesn't want her real name out there yet, but she wants to talk. We meet at a diner just off the I-540 Beltline, tucked between a Waffle House and an old gas station. She slides into the booth, nervously clutching a tote bag. Her eyes dart around the room like she expects someone to be watching. She doesn't order food, just a coffee. Then she tells me everything. After your suspension, she says, they didn't just want to fire you. They wanted to wipe the record clean. I was in the room when they said it. Wipe what clean? I ask. She pulls out a USB drive. This. Inside are over 30 screenshots and documents. Edited meeting minutes where my name was removed from credits. Email threads where I was cut from distribution. And one particularly damning Slack message from a senior VP. She's a problem. Let's quietly remove her from all decks before Q3 review. Maya shakes her head. They didn't just ignore you, they erased you on purpose. My stomach turns. I wasn't paranoid. I was being targeted. I include all of Maya's documentation in a secure folder. I add it to the new version of the silence report and send an encrypted version to the class action legal team. They call me the next morning. We'd like to move forward. And we want you as a named plaintiff. I make the decision carefully. It's one thing to be a whistleblower. It's another to stand at the front of a class action lawsuit against a multi-million-dollar consulting firm with a deep legal bench and big friends. But I say yes, because this isn't about just me anymore. This is about every voice they buried, every promotion they blocked, every silent meeting where someone like me sat at the edge of the table and said nothing, not because they had nothing to say, but because they knew no one would listen. Once the lawsuit becomes public record, the news spreads fast. The local business journal picks up the story again. This time, they name names. Consulting giant Harbor Ridge hit with class action suit over racial bias and retaliation claims. They include a copy of the lawsuit in full. My name is on page 1. Harbor Ridge scrambles. Their website goes offline for maintenance. LinkedIn comments disappear. And then, the big one, the CEO resigns. It's framed as a personal decision to pursue new opportunities, but everyone knows the truth. The pressure finally cracked them. Meanwhile, I keep building. Plainsight Equity gains 3 more contracts, 2 national nonprofits, and a partnership with a university's business school to build an inclusive leadership training course. I hire 2 part-time staffers. One of them is Erin. "You sure about this?" she asks when I offer her the job. "You spoke up when it counted," I tell her. That's all I needed to see. But Harbor Ridge isn't done yet. I hear from another source, a friend of a friend, who says the firm is trying to spin everything as a smear campaign by a disgruntled employee. They're calling my consulting work revenge activism. That would be laughable if it weren't dangerous. Because now they're trying to discredit Plainsight Equity, not just me. They've been contacting clients behind my back, spreading doubt. One client says a Harbor Ridge rep implied my data was manipulated. I sit at my desk, staring at the monitor, feeling something I haven't felt in a long time. Rage, cold, focused rage. They tried to erase me from the inside. Then they tried to paint me as unstable. Now they're trying to poison the well. So I make my next move. I schedule an open press event. A live webinar titled "Silence No More: How One Report Changed a Corporate Empire." I send invites to every journalist who covered the story, every client, every vendor, every consulting network in my inbox. The event goes live on a Wednesday evening. Over 3,000 people attend. Halfway through the broadcast, I drop the bomb. I have evidence that my ideas were not only stolen, but that efforts were made to erase my contributions altogether. We have Slack messages, redacted meeting notes, former staff testimonies. Then I bring on Maya as a guest speaker. She uses a voice filter and alias, but her story is clear, powerful, and damning. People are in the comments section typing "firestorm," "lawsuit incoming," and finally someone is speaking the truth. That night, I get a call. It's not a reporter this time. It's a woman named Trisha Washington, a senior exec at a Fortune 100 company. "I watched your event," she says. "We want you to come speak at our headquarters next quarter. Full keynote, paid." I stare at the phone, stunned. This time last year, they wouldn't even let me finish a sentence in a meeting. Now they want me on stage. 3 months later, I'm standing on stage in New York City at a leadership summit hosted by one of the most powerful companies in the country. There's a sea of faces in the audience: executives, HR leaders, DEI specialists, and corporate decision makers from across the US. They're here to hear me. The woman Harbor Ridge tried to silence. Behind me, the screen flashes my presentation title: "Visibility is Power, From Erased to Unignorable." And I start with the truth. I wasn't fired for poor performance. I wasn't sidelined because I was unqualified. I was erased because I made people uncomfortable with how clearly I saw the cracks. I walk them through my story, not as a victim, but as a strategist. I talk about the silence report, the retaliation, the lawsuit. And I end with the question I always ask: how many people in your company are holding back what they see because they know the price of speaking up? The room is quiet. Listening. That's when I know my story didn't just survive. It changed the game. Back in Raleigh, Harbor Ridge is in freefall. The class action suit grows. 5 more employees join. Then 10. One is a former VP who says they were instructed to bury internal complaints before they reached legal. Another submits chat logs showing upper leadership joking about DEI efforts being a waste of budget. The company's image implodes. Clients flee. The state contracts dry up. By the end of the fiscal quarter, Harbor Ridge announces a strategic restructuring. But everyone knows it's code for "we're bleeding out." I don't celebrate out loud, but I do mark the moment. I drive past their building on a gray Thursday afternoon and see the "for lease" sign already going up. Same glass lobby, same cold parking deck. Different story now. A few weeks later, I'm on a Zoom call with Greenfield Pharma again. They're expanding the partnership. They want me to head a new internal council, an independent review board to ensure all vendors meet community accountability standards. They offer me a long-term contract with full autonomy, and they ask me one more thing: "Do you know anyone else with your kind of clarity and perspective we should be working with?" I smile. "Yes," I say. "I know a few." By the end of the year, Plainsight Equity has grown from a one-woman mission to a 6-person team with clients in 4 states. We run trainings, audit systems, and give honest feedback, the kind people used to pretend they couldn't handle. I keep the original Silence report on a shelf in my office. The spine is worn. The cover has sticky notes from all the late nights I spent building it alone. That file almost ended my career. Now it's what built my legacy. I think back to that first meeting where they talked over me like I wasn't even there, where someone took my idea and got credit, where I was told I sounded angry. They wanted me to shrink. Instead, I documented, I strategized, I exposed the game, and then I built something they couldn't erase. So here's my last truth: they tried to bury me. But they didn't realize I was the seed. If this story hit home, do two things: hit like and subscribe to support more real stories like this. And tell me in the comments, what was the moment you knew you had to speak up? You never know who's waiting to hear your story.